and this to management and is interacting with this environment, the technological environment, with leaders and managers with respect to decision making. To do it, requirements, context, and a management leadership context. So this is a view of the context of information systems. Another view of this context is there is a wider context of information systems. So if you look at this diagram, which basically shows the internal organizational context, where strategy is there, resources are there, culture is there, people and their capabilities is there, structure is there, and systems is here. And this is where you find processes, because systems go into implement processes. And information systems will be part of the systems. These could be computer-based information systems, automated systems, or manual systems. So you find information systems here. But the thing that holds them together is leadership and management. In 316 in third year, we talked about leaders and managers and what they do in organizations. So information systems is just one of the many things within an internal organizational environment. And if you take the case of information systems sitting there as part of the systems, it is interacting with literally everything here. It is interacting with strategy, structure, resources, culture. Resources here could be largely financial and other non-financial resources. And so on and so forth. So information systems is part of an internal organizational environment or context. But the organization is situated in an external environment. As we saw when we were talking about strategy earlier, we saw that external environment has got a market environment. This is where you find your customers, both existing customers as well as potential customers. But this is where you will also find your competitors in the competitive environment. And then there is that macro environment consisting of political, the pastel, political, social, technological, and so on and so forth, legal. So the organization is interacting with that environment on a continuing basis. And information systems, as part of this organizational environment, will also be interacting with that external environment. If there are changes in technology here, like emerging technologies, they will affect the information systems that we have. There are changes in the macro environment, legal, for example, like when data protection came into being, it became very important that information systems must be aligned, must obey the regulations that were created and to protect personal data. um, compliance, compliance with that legal environment. Competitors will also affect your information systems. You, of course, your customers, as the people you're serving, will affect information systems in terms of uh, their needs, their preferences, and so on and so forth. It will affect the nature of your information system in your organization. And therefore, when you look at the context of an information system, it's very complex when you look at it from this perspective. And you tend to look at information systems in isolation. You go and find an information system in an organization like SMIS or a hospital information system or a human resource management system or even an ERP. But you don't look at it as a piece of technology sitting on its own. It is constantly interacting with all these elements within the organization. And it can be affected by something happening in the external environment. Um, so this is critical to appreciate. Let me see whether there are any questions up to this point. Any questions, comments? Okay, I'll move on. So in terms of introduction, as you saw from those two diagrams, information systems then exist in a very complex internal organizational environment, as well as the wider. I didn't blow out the external environment, but we saw that when we were talking about strategy. So the context of an information system is very complex. The internal organizational environment has got all those things, including power systems, which I did not mention before. The external environment, this this person is disturbing me with their need to be admitted. Edwin, don't come late. Edwin, try to come earlier next time. You're disturbing us. So back to where we were. Yes. So we have the external environment consisting of those three layers of the customer environment, the competition environment, and the macro environment, which is both national and global. Probably we should say national, regional, and global. And global, because we are affected by an information system will be affected by regional issues, like for example the East African community and any agreements agreed upon that are binding. Information systems might be required to comply. Like for example, if there are data agreements on cross-border data flows within the East African region or within the African region, and Kenya is obligated to comply with those agreements, then they will affect information systems implemented that have got a regional nature, particularly information systems that run across. These organizations with businesses across the region in East Africa or even in Africa will be bound by those agreements, and the compliance will be demanded of those information systems. So with that, the argument is that we need to understand the context of an information system And there was somebody who was disturbing me before. The context of an information system and how that context could affect an information system, whether it is compliance requirements with agreements, with the legal provisions, or whatever it is. It is important to understand those because you cannot manage an information system that is purely a technological artifact. If you go into organizations with that mentality, that I am developing an information system, I am a technological expert, and I'm developing this, and I don't care what happens in the rest of the organization, in the outside the organization, you're just deceiving yourself because information systems are complex in the way this is the last person I'm admitting, and I'm not admitting anybody else after this. They're just a disturbance. So we need to know to understand the context of information systems and how they affect the information systems that we are managing, we are developing, we are using in an organization. So in this particular section of our or in this topic, we will focus on the IT infrastructural ecosystem or the technological ecosystem. And then we'll also focus on the social and organizational context of information systems. Those are the two things that are critical to understand. So if we start with the technological ecosystem, I'll pick key technological things that are around an information system and discuss them. So if I start with the infrastructure hardware, what hardware are we talking about with respect to the information system? This is a question. What hardware are we talking about?
Servers,
Servers, yes. Anybody else?
Networking equipment such as routers.
Routers, switches, yes. Thank you. Anybody else?
the end user computers,
The end user devices, because users will need to interact with the information system through a network, yes.
Storage devices.
Storage devices, yes, very good. So there are many hardwares, and these are some of them. You have mentioned most of them. Networks, whether they are local, wide, servers, application servers, database servers, storage systems, data entries, data centers, end user devices, and so on and so forth. What is their purpose? All this hardware infrastructure will enable an organization to process, store, and communicate data effectively across the organization. Whether it's to with customers, with users, and so on and so forth. But the other important question is how can challenges in this infrastructure affect information system? And I've just mentioned some of them. You'll probably come up with more. If there is a downtime and availability issue in these various components of hardware, it will also affect our system because it will bring downtime. If the network is not available, obviously your customers will not access your information system. If the network is not available or there's downtime, yeah, your users, your customers will have a challenge accessing the information system. Of course, if it is a network, we have to make sure that there is there's a form of redundancy, so that if a section of the network goes down, then all the traffic is rerouted automatically to through other links, so that the customer doesn't experience downtime. Because a customer experiences downtime in accessing their information systems, they will start thinking twice whether they should stay with you as a customer. Data loss. Data loss is another one, whether it is in your storage systems or even during transmission. You could lose data, or you could be interfered with by security issues. Cybersecurity hacking. People can steal data from you or even delete important data in your storage systems. Cybersecurity and all other forms of vulnerability will affect your information systems. If there are performance bottlenecks in your hardware, whether it is processing, storage, transmission, whatever it is, you will compromise the services that you provide with the information system that you have. Scalability. Can your hardware infrastructure be scaled to accommodate changing requirements or changes in the information system, which in turn is accommodating changes in business requirements? So if your servers cannot scale, if your data center cannot scale, if your throughput in terms of network throughput cannot scale, then you will have a challenge. I am sure you saw what happened during the Gen Z demonstrations. We all experienced either downtime or reduced throughput as we were interacting with information systems in different places, or having access to the internet or resources within the internet. And that was because I think there was throttling by the service providers, maybe with instructions from government, so that they frustrate all this communication that was taking place. In other countries, when there are changes, when there are issues like those, like in Uganda, they just shut down internet, and nobody can communicate through social media, through whatever. Here it's a bit difficult to go and order the service providers to shut down, because those are businesses and they're in business, and you are bringing about losses. Maintenance costs, energy consumption, and so on and so forth. Incompatibility. Vendor support. Vendor support is a critical thing with hardware and with even other systems. So if, for example, your vendor who was supporting your network, or your vendor who was supporting your servers, decides to stop the support that they were providing because technology has changed and they have moved on to new technology, and they don't want to support old technology, which is really something that happens all the time. If you do not have resources to replace that technology so that you can migrate to the new technology by the vendors, then you are left with very old technology, which then becomes vulnerable to cyber attacks because it's not being supported. There are no patches being released to protect the resource, and so on and so forth. Are there any other challenges that you can think of that could arise from hardware infrastructure and that could affect our information systems? Anything else you can think of? You guys are very, very quiet today. Somebody's attempting to say something.
I think there's a challenge when.
Yes,
Let me correct my mic.
Okay. As Gregory does that, anybody else with any other challenges that could affect information systems from a hardware perspective? You guys have been around for a while. In your fourth year, you've done all these hardware things. Yes, Mutuku, Alex.
Can we say network bandwidth and latency? Because sometimes the ISPs can have issues, and if you don't have a backup, then that becomes a problem.
Yes, yes, that is something that can affect your information system. That's correct. Gregory, have you fixed your mic?
Yes, I fixed it. I wanted to mention that the rapid change in and development of infrastructure. So keeping up with the new and latest infrastructure, I feel it's a challenge in organizations and trying to maintain their infrastructure hardware.
Yes, yes, yes. Keeping abreast with the developments in hardware infrastructure can be a challenge and can compromise if you're operating on very old hardware infrastructure. Others? Okay, we'll look at something else. The next thing that I want us to look at is software. Now we have talked about hardware and how it could affect our information systems. What about software? What software are we talking about here?
Can we talk about, we've talked about servers and such. Can we also talk about like cloud service providers? For example, Oracle usually manages servers for people if you're having something sort of, no, data centers, sorry, for people if you're having in-house kind of, okay, they usually have a certain package where if you want a dedicated data server, I mean, you want a dedicated server for your organization, maybe because of constraints due to data laws and such, you can have your own data server. So Oracle can also manage that for you, install, manage, help you with. I don't know. Let me just put it that way. I don't have the best words to explain it.
Okay. If you're talking about cloud services, you can have software as a service. I think that is part of software, isn't it? Software as a service.
Yes.
You can have a platform as a service. And those are software components. Yes, anybody else? Thank you. I can't
Could
see.
we also see database management systems to manage the
Yes,
databases?
database management systems or platforms. Yes, correct. Thank you. Any other?
What about server operating system software?
Very good. OS. We have many. OS is there. The virtualization, OS virtualization, virtual client computing, software development tools, collaboration and productivity tools, like a tool like what we're using here. Google Meet is a collaboration tool. Identity and access management software, and so on and so forth. Yes?
For the cloud service providers, can we also put, because some of the providers, say for example, AWS have identity and access management. Can we also put it there?
What are you saying we put now?
There is one software you've mentioned in identity and access management software.
Yes.
So AWS usually has part of the tools that it has is identity and access management, or rather IAM. Can you also put it there?
Yeah. It's part of IAM is part of identity and access management. IAM. So that's kind of software, whatever it is, without mentioning, and there are very many types of IAM, identity and access management. It falls within that. Yeah. There was somebody who had raised their hand. So what is the purpose of all these software that we have listed there? And the list is not exhaustive. They provide tools to monitor, automate, secure, effectively manage infrastructure resources, basically allowing businesses or organizations to meet their goals and maintain high performance and reduce their costs. Depends on the purpose of each one of those softwares, but it's all contained in that general statement. Then the challenges this software will have, or the impact it will have, challenges in this software, the impact it will have on information systems. If you have failures, I'll just mention a few of them. If you have failures in any of them, for example, backup software, if there's failure in this, then you'll have challenges with your information system. Because if there's a problem and you want to go back to backup, then you cannot, your backup is not up to date. Or if there are failures in any of this, IAM, for example, identity and access management. If there's a problem, then you will have a challenge with your information system because it might be accessed by people without the necessary rights to access that software. Issues of costly upgrade. Because we constantly have to upgrade our information systems. And if this software infrastructure or components need to be upgraded to work with the information system and it's very expensive and you can't afford it, then you'll have a challenge. If you have inefficient resource allocation by the operating system, for example, then you have a challenge with your information system. You have weak identity and access management. And this is something we have experienced in some organizations that I have interacted with, where employees who have left the organization or who have been sacked still maintain rights in specific information systems, and therefore can do havoc to the organization. They can steal money, they can transfer money to some non-existent accounts because they have the rights to create those accounts. And those accounts are linked to them or to their relatives or to their friends, and then they go and share the money somewhere. So those IAM systems are supposed to protect that. And immediately an employee is sacked or their status changes to being a non-employee, then all the rights should be revoked across all systems where that employee had rights. And we have experienced this in several organizations. In one organization, a former employee basically transferred money from some of the accounts within the organization to his own accounts. And we had to do a lot of work. We eventually got the money back. Fortunately, they had not used the money. Because once you transfer, and we know, we can see where it has been transferred, we instruct the other bank to freeze, or we get instructions to freeze that account so that they don't have access to that money. And then we start mechanisms to repatriate the money back to where it came from. And of course, we get the security the security systems to deal with that kind of person. Incompatible software updates or irregular updates and patches to fix security vulnerabilities. Those are some of the challenges from a software perspective that could affect our information systems. Are there other challenges that could affect information systems from a software perspective? From your experiences or from what you know? So if you don't use some platforms properly, isn't it? Okay, very good. That's another one. Yes, anybody else? Yes, I can't see who that is. Let me check who that is.
It may be difficult to integrate these software platforms with other existing platforms. So this may pose a challenge if we want to utilize the services of other platforms.
So if there are incompatibilities.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else? Somebody's trying to talk. I don't know who it is. Yes, Alex.
Yes, I wanted to give an example of what happened recently with CrowdStrike. I think you've given that example of incompatible software updates, where it just crashed the whole servers of so many organizations.
Yeah, and actually, very many organizations incurred losses. I don't know whether they will institute legal legal charges against the company. I have not followed the story very well because many companies lost a lot of money. Although it was not, it was short-lived, but companies, if you are using your information system to do business across the world, and you are down for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, and that is money down the drain because customers would have been buying your merchandise and so on and so forth, but they have no opportunity to buy. So they put that money into other uses. So there are so many things that can affect your information systems. So we have only looked at hardware and software. Yes, Melissa.
I have a question. Though I just wanted to know where it would lie in terms of the end user. If the end user is finding it hard to work with the software, if it's too complex or requires a lot of training so that you can be able to work with it, would that be a challenge in infrastructure software, or where does that?
No, that is not anything with infrastructure software, because that is something to do with the person and having the capabilities to interact with your information system. So that is a people issue. And that's a skill issue. Because when you have a software and information system, you must train your users so that they can interact and use the system appropriately. So it's nothing to do with the infrastructure or software. But it's a people issue which we'll come to later. Yeah, but thanks. Okay, we move to something else. Feel free to ask a question, just like Melissa asked, if you have a doubt somewhere along the line. Yes, Gregory.
No, it was Tevin.
Oh, Tevin,
I
yeah.
wanted to ask, yeah, in terms of effective cost management,
Cost management.
could we say, yeah, would we say that's a challenge, especially for organizations that decide to run their infrastructure on the cloud, their software and their hardware? You notice some of them have cost overruns. So could one of the components be monitoring and logging, and could a challenge be effectively cost managing these solutions that you've deployed to the cloud?
Yeah, that's actually a big issue because people, a lot of organizations have rushed to the cloud. Then when the cloud service provider begins to charge, they realize this thing is not cheap. And therefore, I have seen several organizations that have gone to the cloud. They have said, cloud is one of our strategies. We are moving everything to the cloud. Then the operational costs start moving up. And they say, oh my goodness, this is very serious. All these applications running in the cloud, it's not cheap. Because they had not probably discussed and thought through the cost equation. And therefore, they start now scaling down on cloud and removing some of the systems from the cloud back to their data center or to their local servers, in-house servers. And then your customers were used to having a very good uptime with the cloud services. And therefore, they're experiencing degradation in service because you have moved them from the cloud to on-prem data center or servers. And therefore, that affects that moving from the cloud back because of cost issues back to your on-prem resources will create a problem for the customer because they say all of a sudden we're experiencing degradation in services. So you are right in that. So I can put the issue of cost as an important one. Cost of cloud services could eventually affect. Anybody else? Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, we'll move to something else. Another part of the technology ecosystem. I picked, I think, 4 or 5. System monitoring and management tools. What are we talking about here in terms of systems monitoring and management tools? We have so many tools to monitor the health of your technological ecosystem or to manage. What are some of those tools we are talking about? Okay, nobody seems to be thinking.
CMs. Oh.
Okay, I have several of them. Service operations management tools. I'll give an example there called ServiceNow, which is one of the big systems, one of the best systems. You can manage all kinds of things within the organization. Change and configuration management. And ServiceNow does all that, IT service management. It does a lot of all those management things in IT service management, ITSM. Performance management tools like Oracle eBusiness Suite. So any tools that you use to monitor or to manage the your software cycles, whether it's change management or whatever it is, operations, are important tools. You could say they're part of software, but it is important to put them separately. Yeah. And their purpose is ensure smooth operation of IT system. And remember what we said when we were talking about at the beginning, information systems are there to create value for the business. And they create that value not during strategy development, not during planning for the information system. Largely, it is through usage, which is largely at the operation stage of an information system lifecycle. So managing the operations of an information system is very critical because that is the time the organization is deriving business value from the information system. They also help IT functions manage their infrastructure, their applications, their services, and therefore enhancing efficiency, security, and responsiveness, which are critical considerations. So how can challenges in these tools then affect our information systems? And I've given 3 examples there of failure to detect or log incidents that are happening in information systems in real time can lead to IT teams not addressing problems with critical information systems that could disrupt operations. So detection of incidents and logging of incidents is an important part of system monitoring, or some of the tools do that. Failure to monitor systems may lead to server overloads, system bottlenecks, outages, which at the end of the day will impact negatively your business operations. And of course, customer experience at the end of the day. Then from a security perspective, because some of the systems monitor security intrusion, so failure to monitor security could lead to failure to identify a system intrusion, vulnerability, or attack, leading to unauthorized access to business critical data in your information system. So organizations will tend to have all kinds of sophisticated monitoring and management tools. It is not enough to have security within your information system. I know you guys, when you're developing information system, security is important. But there are other applications that are sitting on top and that are looking at possible security threats. And those tools, then if there are challenges in those tools, could lead to attacks or unauthorized access. Anything else from any other challenge from system monitoring and management perspective that you can think of? Okay, I'll move to something else. It looks like you have no ideas on this one. If I move to something else, the next one is security. And I decided to remove security, although security could be some of the tools we are talking about in the previous slide. But security tools are important to consider separately from those operations-oriented monitoring tools. Because security is such a critical thing. In some organizations, security takes a bigger budget in comparison to other aspects of IT. And therefore, it's so critical because if your systems are compromised from a security perspective, then you can imagine the losses that organizations will have. So what are some of the security tools that we could use? Yes.
Firewalls.
Firewalls, yes, very good.
Um,
Antivirus software.
And virus software, very good.
Biometric logs.
Biometric logs, very good.
VPN.
VPN.
Can you say VPN?
Is VPN a security tool, really?
Yeah, when you don't want to be seen by.
Yeah. Because a private network.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Very good. It's a security consideration, yes. Anyone else?
Even
Vulnerability management software.
Vulnerability management software, yes, very good.
can physical locks and such be considered as security?
Yes, that's security. I remember when I was managing IT for the university, we had to put, grills, even grills. There was one time when there was a lot of trees behind our building, and we used to have a computer lab. You know where LG2 is? There are two rooms there, LG1 and LG2. LG1 is the one next to the generator there below at the back. Do you know those rooms, you guys?
Yes, we've been there.
Yes.
I had like
I don't know whether LG1 is still used, but we had created
Yes.
a lab there. I think it was either a hardware lab or a networking lab. I had created a lab there for teaching, and we had lots of computers there. So people came in the middle of the night through the back and broke the window and the door and entered and carried all those computers in gunias. We found one gunia actually abandoned somewhere near the river the next day. But they carried our computers. Of course, those computers have got software and all kinds of things. So we lost a lot of things. So we enhanced the grills. So physical access and putting all those grills and those doors. I put all those doors you see there because of physical access. And even getting close to when you enter through the front door, to enter the other door where there is a few offices and the computer room, there's another security check there. And before you enter into the computer room, there is access control, which is monitored. So all those physical access issues and physical security issues are important because you are trying to protect equipment as well as software, hardware as well as software, and the applications that are running on those platforms. So yes, you could consider physical security. And even the askari who is sitting there as part of physical security could be considered as a security tool. But here we are talking about more technological oriented security tools. So even CCTV, most of these have been mentioned. Access management, whether physical or whatever. Identity and access management, IAM, is critical. Security and vulnerability management has been mentioned. Those are, and I should add here VPN. Somebody mentioned VPN there, which is a good one. So, what is their purpose? Detect threats, investigate, respond to threats, managing access, and of course, managing, preventing unauthorized access, managing user roles and access rights. And that is where we are saying if users leave the organization and you do not revoke those roles and rights, then you have a challenge because they can do all kinds of things when they're outside the organization. And how can challenges in these security tools affect our information systems? Here I've mentioned a few of them, breaches, like what I've mentioned with the former employees, even current employees, people have stolen. You saw somebody who stole 1 point something billion in equity, and it's a current employee transferring money from a particular account to himself and his relatives, but because they had access to an account which had a lot of money. Attacks, cyber attacks, for example, theft of money is another one. Compliance violations. And I mentioned there was a former student of computer science from our school who was involved in theft of a lot of money from TRA. And they're using their technological knowledge to do that, to compromise the security of systems. Compliance violations, like for example, we have a lot of compliance with the data privacy, data security. So we comply with data protection legislation as well as regulations. Inefficiency, if you have ineffective security tools, to lead to higher costs. Poor customer experience, brand reputation. If, for example, your systems have been attacked several times, and customers, in lots of cases, customers lose money. And that customer losing their money, they start thinking about, really, this is not a good company. So your reputation in front of, or is perceived by your customers, starts going down, starts getting a beating. And that is how you lose your customers. Or if you have fragmented security response to threats or to breaches. Any other challenge that could affect our information systems?
Can one say loss of information systems data due to security breaches?
Yes, but that will follow within the breaches. If you lose the data in your information system, yes, that will affect your information system. Any other? Yes.
I've come across certain blogs where say startups, for example, an organization is starting up, and this is within the context of Europe. I'm not sure how we do it in Kenya, but basically what this startup founder was saying was that the company was an LLC and they were told to comply with SOC 2 regulations, Security Operations Center. And I was trying to imagine, is that a challenge in terms of security, that non-compliance would be an issue, that you have to integrate these tools for you to be considered, for lack of a better term, legit?
Yeah. That's a compliance issue, which is covered with the compliance bullet. So it covers many things, not just legislation. Yeah, that's correct. Thanks. Any other challenge in security tools?
Sir.
Yes.
How about when can we say, if let's say a set of workers that were trained to, and they know the information system inside out, if let's say they retire or they have to leave, and then the new personnel brought in, then later on, like, would have to like take time to fully understand, and maybe what if they still would not know some aspects of the information system fully? Would that be a challenge?
That would be a challenge. Sorry. Can you mute? There seems to be a feedback. Yeah, that would be a challenge, but that is more of a people challenge. Like I mentioned earlier, somebody had asked a question. It's a people challenge there. That the new employees who replaced those former employees then do not have the requisite capacity to use the information system. And that is a people issue.
So, question, where does documentation come in play for all of these things? Where do we classify it at?
Documentation, yeah, actually documentation will cut across because in many of these things, these tools, you will need a lot of documentation. In the software that we looked at, there is need for a lot of documentation and manuals so that in case of anything, you can be able to refer and know how to deal with specific issues. So documentation, if they lack, could also be a challenge because if you are faced with a problem and you don't know how to deal with it, do you have a backup where you can be able to go and see this is the procedure I'm supposed to follow to deal with this situation? Yes, I think documentation is an interesting one, but that cuts across. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll move to something else. If there are no other questions. I would move to, we're done with security, digital channels. Digital channels, what are you talking about in digital channels? Are there any examples you can think about? This is when you're delivering to your users, to your customers. What channels do you use to provide services?
Can we say websites?
Websites, yes, you can use websites, portals.
Social media.
Social media, very good.
Email.
Email, very good. Any other?
What about people at the service desks?
Service desks. Give me an example.
If you want something repaired, you call.
Or like call centers.
Yeah, like a call center.
Okay, call center. Yes, it's definitely a channel.
What about e-commerce platforms?
E-commerce platforms, yes, is another channel because people buy and sell their products through an e-commerce platform. And therefore use
Mobile apps.
Mobile apps, very good, very good. So we have mentioned most of them: mobile platforms, mobile apps, portals, website, email, and so on and so forth. Social media, contact center, all of them. I think you have mentioned all of them. What is their purpose? Of course, we are providing services to customers. Whether we are selling products or whatever it is, customer engagement, like through social media, you engage the customers, improve efficiency of internal processes, provision of data on customer behavior, preferences, etc., etc. And you can also use some of these for digital marketing campaigns. These channels because you want new customers, you want to test new services with customers, so you do marketing, digital marketing. So if you have challenges in the digital channels, how could they affect information systems? Obviously, one of them is you provide services to the customers, and therefore, if there are any challenges with these platforms, with these channels, customers will experience poor service because of failure or unavailability of a channel. Operational disruptions. If the channel is not available or has got issues, you can have disruptions. And if you only reach your customer, your end user with those channels, then they will experience availability challenges of your information system, in turn doing reputation damages, brand reputation damages to your organization. Because if customers cannot access your services, your products, because of channel issues, then they will think this is not the right supplier for me. Data breaches, for example, due to compromised digital channel, which then exposes very sensitive customer data, for example, or data silos. If you have poor integration between digital channels, or system overloads, because channels can scale to accommodate growing demand, which leads to bottlenecks in your information systems. So these are examples of challenges that could affect challenges in digital channels that could affect information systems. Do you have any other challenges that you could think of in digital channels? So if there are none, yeah.
All right, we could say that I think there's a challenge with complying with privacy laws and privacy risks.
How is this related to a channel?
Yeah, because you are processing customer data, so like payments and their credit card data. So you'd have also to comply on how you store them. Some countries also do not allow their citizens' data to be stored outside the country, so it has to be internally and so on.
Okay. Then it passes. Your point passes. Compliance.
I have a question on the poor customer service. We said failure or unavailability. Can we also say, where does maybe things that are people related now in digital channels, like how customer service, how when you call like customer service and how they respond to you, the different ways a person might can sort your problem, and maybe the tone that they explain something to you might give you a very bad experience in general. How can we crack?
Yeah, I think that is an important one, because contact centers are manned by human beings. And if those human beings are not properly trained or have got issues like rudeness, they do not know how to talk to customers properly, then that can also lead to poor customer experience from the contact center, not from the equipment perspective, but from the human being perspective. Yeah, so it's both a technical, so contact center is both technical and human. If you look at the others, they're largely pieces of technology. It's digital through and through. But there is a component of humans, and that could create problems in customer experience. Yeah, so I would accept that. I would accept that. So let me add it here, including humans, how do you read humans? Manning contact centers. Yeah, that's a good one, Melissa. Any other?
I just want to throw a spanner in the works.
Yes, throw a spanner. You can even throw a hammer if you want.
On that point of human manning contact centers,
Yes.
Just to ask your opinion, do you think if embodied technologies like robots, do you
Yes.
think they'll be able to capture that space and make it more efficient, or do you
Oh,
think
yeah.
humans would need to get better?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the humans are being replaced in those by AI-based systems. And therefore, then you get rid of this. A robot will be nice and they will know how to respond to you. They have been trained using AI to be able to respond appropriately to questions that you you ask, and they have access to a huge database. Some of the humans were probably trained; they never paid attention. And then probably do not have access to all the information. So robots definitely would be more superior to humans, and therefore that problem disappears completely of rudeness or inability to answer some questions properly. In which case it becomes now you convert the whole contact center into a technology environment without the intervention of humans. Yeah, so the point works, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Melissa.
Question on that. So recently, I think Safaricom are also including the use of like now the chatbots and such. Most of them are now you can be able to speak to them, but the challenge is here. Sometimes with customer service, the customer service operators, there is the aspect of empathy, because sometimes you might have been having a challenge and you're very frustrated. I think sometimes most people don't even reach out to the customer service operators necessarily to rectify an issue, but sometimes to even issue a complaint. Do you think that over time this might become a problem later on in terms of we are going to be lacking empathy in general when it comes to customer service?
Yeah. To what extent can you train your robots, your AIs to have empathy? I think that's a question we can discuss. And those people who are doing the assignment on emerging technologies should be able to deal with this issue. To what extent can you replace human beings and the empathy component of human beings? I am frustrated accessing Safaricom service, and therefore I am not complaining for anything. I am just frustrated, and I want to talk to somebody who works for Safaricom and tell them my frustration. In which case, I expect that person to raise it in with the higher authorities. That frustration. To what extent can we replace this aspect of human beings, empathy, and other aspects of human beings with robots, AI? I want to hear responses from others, especially those people who are doing some emerging tech assignment, or anybody else. Anybody wants to go?
I don't think it's possible.
You don't
Because,
think it's present?
yeah, because empathy is you're trying to understand what someone else is going through. A computer can't do that. Maybe you can train it to respond, but you can't train it to actually imagine someone else's life or something like that.
So you're acknowledging the limits.
Yeah, I think there's a threshold.
There's a threshold beyond which you can replace the human being. Melissa, you think to what are you thinking?
Oh, I also wanted to add on. There are organizations which have hard coded their chatbots. Say, for example, there's a chatbot for equity where you can reach out, you can be able to access specific services. Should we also expand the fact? I mean, I don't know why is this question escaping me. In the instances where we're having hard coded responses and such, wouldn't people get frustrated with accessing services for these particular organizations?
You're saying frustration will come from the fact that this thing is hard coded.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. If for example in your contact center you have a chatbot that is hard coded, and you get frustrated because you can't get the information you are looking for. Because they go in a loop and keep on telling you this is what you're supposed to. Yeah, I guess that's a valid point. And it goes to poor customer experience. Okay, so what we have done is looked at the various technological landscape and identified specific technological infrastructure that could have a bearing to our information systems. We have dealt with digital channels, we have dealt with hardware, we have dealt with security tools, we have dealt with all these tools for system monitoring and management. We have dealt with software, we have dealt with hardware as main things. If you look at a technological architecture, it will have all these things. It will have the hardware, it will have the software, it will have all these tools for system monitoring and management, security tools, digital channels, and perhaps other things. So we are saying information systems are sitting as part of this technological ecosystem. And if there's anything that happens in that technological ecosystem, it will affect the information system in one way or the other. So it's acknowledging what we were talking about, this technological ecosystem will affect information systems if anything happens to it. And therefore, in our next session, we will talk about social and organizational aspects. Within, particularly here, we have largely focused on this one. Within this part, or if you want to think about it, within this overall organizational context, that could affect information systems. And that will be the subject of when we meet on Thursday, social and organizational context. But before we stop, I have an assignment, assignment 3, and I want to interest a few people to get involved in this assignment. We have done 2 assignments, and I've seen I have 15 students in each, so that covers about 30. I am told you are about 80, so we will keep on piling other assignments for other students. So who wants to participate in this one on information security? Yeah? Please give me your name.
Eugene Wainaina.
One person at a time. One person, Wainaina. Give me the name.
Yes. Wainaina.
What is the first name?
Eugene.
Eugene Wainaina. Wainaina. Second, another one.
Adrian Omondi.
Yeah. I wish I had a way of making sure only one person talks.
Adrian Bikuri.
Yeah?
Adrian Bikuri.
Ibrahim.
Adrian.
Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian Bikuri.
Bikori. Bikori like this.
You. BIKU.
BIKU. Bikuri.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ajak.
Jack who?
Ajak Queer.
Ajak.
AJ.
AJ.
AJK. Yeah.
Ajak. I won't write the other one.
Ansel Omondi.
Eh?
Ansel Omondi.
Ansel Omondi. Omondi.
Melissa Michuki.
Nyahu?
Melissa Michuki.
Melissa. Michuki.
Sigay Alex.
Yeah?
Sigay Alex.
Sigay Alex. Why do you say Alex Sigay? Is it because that is the way
There
you
is another Alex, so sometimes lecturers get confused.
Okay, I will put it as Alex Sigay.
Hassan Mohammed.
Hassan who?
Hassan Mohammed.
Hassan Ahmed.
Mohammed. Yes.
Another one?
Sylvia.
Betty Onyango.
Sylvia who?
Gadei.
Gadei.
Yeah.
Hold on, my space is getting finished. So I must make sure this thing is smaller than. Okay, somebody else?
Taylor Omondi.
One person?
Taylor Omondi.
Robert. I've captured Robert. Roman Joroge. Another one?
Tanya
Weganjo.
Tanya
Yes.
Weganjo. Another one?
Bentley Onyango.
Benjamin.
Bentley. Yeah, Onyango.
Okay. Another one?
Victor Reno.
Victor?
Reno. RENO.
RENO. People have interesting names. 13?
Taylor Omondi.
Manuel? Ochieng. And there was somebody else making noise.
Taylor
who?
Omondi.
Taylor Omondi. Yeah, I'll do 15. I'll do 15 because I've seen every the other one is 15.
Dominic.
The last one?
Dominic.
Kiprop.
Yeah. Kiprop, drop off. Let me hear the other one. The other person.
Shidma Orero.
That is not the first one I heard. Something Kimeu or something.
It's Kimeu.
Say the name properly. Okay, I'll write Kimeu because I can't hear the other one.
Kimeu Dominic.
Okay, Kimeu Dominic. Okay, very good. That's it. Enough. I don't want to hear anymore. So this is about information system security. And I am asking you to assume that you are the head of information systems in the University of Nairobi. And in fact, I should be head of information systems security in the University of Nairobi. So describe 4 internal and 4 external threats to SMIS security. And describe how you would mitigate against 2 of the internal security threats to that system. justifying the effectiveness of your mitigation measures, because you don't just give me something that you get from ChatGPT. I want you to now think and argue. How effective is that mitigation measure to the security threats? And similarly for the external environment. And then the last question is on the evolving nature of cybersecurity threats. They're constantly evolving. So I'm asking you, how do you describe 3 strategies you will use to ensure university information systems are secure from these dynamic cyber attacks or threats? So those are the 4 questions. And we should have this done by these 15 guys by when? In 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, 15th, by the end of the month. A crazy person wants to come into class at this time of the day, wherever it is. So thank you very much. We'll meet on Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay.